Hello friends and strangers, welcome back to Shenanigans. So for today's video, I will be joining this year's Asian Readathon. The last time that I joined was back in 2022 and I failed miserably. I built a physical TBR of Asian authored books, and let me tell you, until this day, I haven't read most of the books in that TBR. I'm a very moody reader, so I cannot 100% commit to a TBR. For more context and information about Asian Readathon 2024, you may check Cindy from With Cindy's announcement in her channel with links to resources in the reading challenge and storygraph. This year's Readathon is loosely themed around the movie Past Lives, which I haven't seen yet and I badly want to watch. With that, here are the 5 prompts inspired by the movie. 1. Read a book written by an Asian author. 2. Read a book that feels timeless. 3rd is read an underrated book. 4th, read a debut book. And lastly, read a book with a story, a character, or world that represents what you want in your next life. The twist is, though, you can combine challenges and read in any order, but each book that you read should feature a character or author of a different Asian ethnicity. This, according to Cindy, this is to encourage cultural diversity. So for example, I can read a book by a Japanese author to combine challenges 1, 2, and 3, but I'll need to read a different book by an author with a different ethnicity or a character with a different ethnicity for challenges 4 and 5. Before I discuss my TBR though, I want to preface this video or TBR by also mentioning the Stan Asian Authors Reading Challenge organized by Eunice from Nerdy Talks and Kath from Kath Reads. I'll be including links to Cindy's, Eunice's, and Kath's accounts in my description down below, so you can check and build your TBR if you'll be joining these challenges. Without further ado, here are the books that I'll be reading this May for Asian Readathon. First one is After Lambana by Eliza Victoria. This has Filipino representation. I haven't read any Eliza Victoria's book yet, but I've been meaning to, and I think this is also a great start. After Lambana is a graphic novel set in an urban fantasy world featuring Filipino myth, magic, and the supernatural. Lambana is the realm of supernatural fairies known as Dewata has fallen and the Magic Prohibition Act has been enacted. To add to his troubles, there's something wrong with Conrad's heart and only magic can prolong his life. He teams up with Ignacio, a well-connected friend who promises to hook him up with the Dewata and their magical treatments. A quest that's not only risky but highly illegal. As for the prompts, all of the books in this TBR are obviously written by Asian authors, so I'll just mention the other prompts they'll be under. So for After Lambana, I will read this for the prompt underrated book and the book that represents what you want in your next life. Because hello, I would love to live in an urban fantasy and myth-ridden Manila. Additionally, this also checks some of my Stan Asian author prompts, which are books with less than 250 pages, graphic novel, and a fantasy novel. The next book on my TBR is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. So I have a physical copy of this one and it's for an Afghan representation. This book has been on my physical TBR shelf for so long and I guess I'm just intimidated by this book. One, by its length and the way that it left people crying and heartbroken. So I always think that I'm not ready for how heart-wrenching this book is going to be. So hopefully this year for Asian Readathon, I'll get to finally read this book. The Kite Runner is an award-winning historical fiction novel set in the 1970s Afghanistan. 12-year-old Amir is desperate to win the local kite fighting tournament, and his loyal friend Hassan promises to help him. But neither of the boys can foresee what would happen to Hassan that afternoon, an event that is to shatter their lives. After the Russians invade and the family is forced to flee to America, Amir realizes that one day he must return to an Afghanistan under Taliban rule to find the one thing that his new world cannot grant him: redemption. So this book would be under the Timeless Book and Debut Book prompt, as well as the historical fiction prompt for the Stan Asian Authors Challenge. The next book in my TBR is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This is for Korean representation. This memoir made waves the past few years and was the winner for the best memoir and autobiography at the Goodreads Choice Awards last 2021. So this is a memoir by Michelle Zauner, who talks about her experiences of growing up as a Korean American, losing her mother, and forging her own identity. So this would also be under the timeless category, so I'm excited to finally read this memoir. The next book is Papaya Salad by Elisa Maseliari. This is for Thai representation since the author is Thai Italian. So Papaya Salad is Elisa's debut graphic novel, which tells the story of her great uncle who found himself in Europe on military scholarship on the eve of the World War II. According to the author, it's a historical and emotional journey through my family and my roots that are grown between Europe and Asia. Personal narrative that needs to be shared and hopefully arouses empathy in the reader. So this would be for the prompts debut book and underrated book. The next book is The Kamogawa Food Detectives by Hisashi Kashiwai. So this is for Japanese representation. The Kamogawa Food Detectives features a very special restaurant run by a father and daughter duo who are food detectives. And as food detectives, they can recreate dishes from a person's treasured memories. So the dishes provide a link to forgotten pasts and provides a hopeful and hopefully happy future. This sounded very similar to me in terms of the whole vibe and the concept of the book. And when I reread the blurb again, it says it's a series perfect for fans of Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and that is me, myself, and I. I am a huge fan of that Japanese series as well. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. This sounds like a cozy mystery book that I will actually love, so I'm very excited to get on this one. Then this book falls under the 4th and 5th prompts, which are reading a debut novel and a book that represents where, who, and what you want to be in your next life, because I too would love to be a food detective. The next book in my TBR is Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear, Poems from Gaza by Musab Abu Toha. This is for Palestinian representation, and I've also seen this book from one of Cindy's from With Cindy's channel when she did like a bookish wrap up recently, and I got very interested. This debut poetry book is also a memoir that chronicles Musab Abu Toha's experience of growing up and living his entire life in Gaza. So let me share some more of the blurb. In this poetry debut, conceived during the Israeli bombing campaign of May 2021, Musab Abu Toha writes about his life under siege, first as a child and then as a young father. A survivor of 4 brutal military attacks, he bears witness to a grinding cycle of destruction and assault, and yet his poetry is inspired by a profoundly universal humanity. So I'm planning to read this for the debut book an underrated book prompt as well. And for the next book in my TBR, it's The Sympathizer by Readathon. This is for Vietnamese representation. This is also the book of the month for a Discord server that I'm part of, which is the Magic Bookshop, ran by fellow BTS armies. So let me read the blurb as well. The Sympathizer is the story of this captain, a man brought up by an absent French father and a poor Vietnamese mother. A man who went to university in America but returned to Vietnam to fight for the communist cause. A gripping spy novel, an astute exploration of extreme politics, and a moving love story. The Sympathizer explores life between two worlds and examines the legacy of the Vietnam War in literature, film, and the wars we fight today. So this is also a debut novel by Readathon Nguyen, so it fits my debut book prompt. And that's my Asian Readathon TBR that I'm planning to read this May. I say TBR loosely because I may be able to read all of these 7 books, or I may not. But ultimately, the goal of the Readathon is to read and support Asian authored books, not just for the month of May, but all year round, which is the most important. Again, please check out the hosts of the Asian Readathon and the Stan Asian Authors Reading Challenges. Let me know in the comment section below if you'll also be joining either or both of these reading challenges and what books you're planning to read as well. As always, I will see you on my next video. Bye bye.